Real Estate Rewired.
So, welcome to Real Estate Reimagined with Gus Waite, AI with a Heart. This is a real estate show where I talk to top brokers and real estate folks across the country to find out what's working, what's not working, how they're adopting technology, and I think most importantly, how do you increase doing more of what you love and less of what you hate. And today I am so excited to be introduced, to be talking to Jeff. He's a true pioneer in the luxury real estate space. He's a co-founder of Frontgate Real Estate, a powerhouse boutique firm that has closed over $5 billion in lifetime sales. And what makes our guest unique isn't just his ranking in the top 1% of agents nationwide or his recent inclusion in Variety's 2025 top agents list. It's the fact that he brought a background in engineering, music, and film into real estate to build a dual client model that treats his agents with the same white glove service as his celebrity clients in Hidden Hills and Calabasas. He's a prop tech advisor, an AI early adopter who's actually making it work in the field, and a master of scaling culture without losing the soul of a boutique brand. Jeff, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Good, thank you. Is it day after New Year's? Yeah, I guess we're well into the year already, a couple hours, so we're good.
I want to start with this story because this one popped out there about this $6 million AI sale that you did, and you could sort of point directly to AI and how that sort of came about. So let's start with that process. Like, what did that look like, and how was that different than it would have been 10 years ago?
You know, it's just interesting because you can get so creative with AI on how to do different things. And as far as how we attract clients, in the old days, and was around in the old days when there was what they call that, up desk or something. Remember when people would come in the office? So you'd have to sit there in the office and wait your turn for people to come in. It was kind of like an open house if you had a good retail location, basically. So what we did is we have an office, and it's a satellite office at the front of this place called Hidden Hills, where Kardashians and Will Smith and all these people live. There's only 650 high-end luxury homes there, and it's a guarded community. We have the office. It's like a 1,500 square foot warehouse right before it comes in. So we're not that creative of people because the name of our team's called Frontgate, and we're at the front gate.
Right.
So with AI and just, messing around with geo-targeting and trying to figure out very creative ways on how to use it, and not just setting it up yourself. It's kind of difficult. You don't know how. You're trying to say, okay, I tried to do this before. I got to hire somebody. So instead of hiring someone, I just went to AI and said, hey, if I was to geo-target someone at a location and it was to follow them around and make an ad or do something to pop up to remind them if they were there. So what I did is, because I have the address and we have the Google My Business there, I was able to put a geo mapping tag, basically, that when anybody comes inside and out of the gate, they start getting served ads because of their location. And people do this at events. People do this at for a bunch of different things. So we did, and the guy pulled up in a minivan because I have a camera at the office and stuff, and an expensive minivan. But I hear kids yelling in the background, and he's like, I got to go in and see these houses. We get that all the time. We've had TMZ, like, we find out they're in the back seat of our car saying they're a family coming in from out of town to go, us to go drive around celebrity tours, So we got to be very careful. And, went through this whole process with this guy, and kids are screaming, I got to get in the house. And you're like, okay, sure, buddy. And as he gave me his name, I looked him up. And it was Darman, who is, if you're on any kind of social media, has a massive following, whatever. So anyway, that turned into more of a $6 million sale. That turned into, I think, over time, I think he's done 2 or 3 transactions with our team. He's probably close to 18, 20 million probably. But without AI and waiting for someone else to do it, I took the 5 minutes to talk to it like a person and understand and teach me, what does this do? How do I do it? And really getting into details. And you don't have to be a coder nowadays. You don't have to do all this crazy stuff. If you take the time AI will walk you through some really high level shit that you would never think you'd be capable of. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, but I'd like to bring it back to the beginning, right? So you're in engineering. Was that your sort of first foray into adulting, or like what was your, you know what I mean? I want to look for the track from the engineering to the film to the music to the real estate. Like, how did that happen?
Oh, I grew up in Detroit. So you grew up in Detroit, you do one or two things. You become an alcoholic or you work on the car industry. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, that's bad.
Not
Or
far.
both.
Right, right.
But no, so I got into early in high school. You go into kind of apprenticeship programs, and then 5 years later, I'm sitting there, at Kentmore, which is an affiliation of General Motors, and got a mechanical engineering, specialty degree, and I'm working doing that stuff. Um, it was real cool, but as a really young kid, I'm looking around, and at the time, I'm looking at these 40, 50-year-old guys, which, now I'm over that age, but I was looking at them going, man, this looks like a really slow death. There's more,
Mm,
there's got to be more to this. And nothing wrong with what they're doing. We need people to do that. I just felt like, you know, I was playing in bands at nighttime in bars in Detroit, and that was kind of fun. It was exciting. So my heart just like pushed me into that and outside of that. So I got a taste of mechanical engineering and engineering, not computer engineering or anything like that, or coding, because it didn't exist at the time. But yeah, it just kind of pushed me into out of that into music. Music got me to California. The first show I played was at the Troubadour, and then I've worked with Gene Simmons as a manager and had record deals at Warner Brothers and a lot of fun stuff, and that for 10 years. And then shifted into the film industry, I was doing a distribution for movies, and back in the day when they had actually these things called man, I'm sounding really old, aren't I?
no, this is good stuff. Listen, I always find it fascinating because, listen, you're 17, 18, 12, or whatever. You kind of go, all right, this is what's around me. I mean, the thing that's fascinating to me about the engineering piece, and then we'll get into the movie piece, is like engineering, it either works or it doesn't, right? I mean, there's a real you got to build stuff in a way that has integrity. And so I'm just kind of looking at that arc, then getting into real estate, which we'll get into a minute. But like with the new processes, they either work or they don't.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the mindset, maybe why you've been so successful. But then you throw in the music and the movie business. And then how do you transition from the movie business into real estate? Like, how did that come about?
So I had a brother-in-law that was a nut job, a rich nut job, but he was Guatemalan and Chinese, and he was this very unique combination of ethnicity, and he was like a Howard Hughes of that ethnicity. So he was just out of his mind, but really forward thinking. This is the kind of guy, like, I introduced him to one of the guys from Ozzy and from Metallica, who were friends of mine. They cared more about him than me after about 2 or 3 months, because he was so fascinating. They were like, "Where's Poncho? Bring Poncho with you," you know. And he was just this super deep thinker that always asked questions and always just pushed the envelope and always put you into an uncomfortable situation of why. Why are you doing this? The stuff that would pull you outside of the ruts that you get into of habits because you think you have to be there. A lot of us keep jobs that we don't want. A lot of us have spouses that we don't want to be with anymore. A lot of us are in positions that it just becomes that comfortable norm that after a while you're just conditioned to it and you become miserable. Kind of like when I was doing the engineering stuff, I was able to pull myself out of this. Everyone thought it was crazy. You're like, oh my God, you're going to have pension and you're going to have this and, wow. And, everybody was looking up to it like, kudos. And my soul was rotting when I was doing it. So anyway, Poncho put this, it was cassette tape and it was on the corner of his desk. And I don't know why he was messing with me. He knew I was kind of like miserable doing the multimedia distribution stuff because it was all coming to an end with Netflix and digital, with broadcasting and everything. So he put this thing on the corner of the desk, and it was this cassette thing by this guy Richard Kiyosaki. And he goes, so I kept going. I go up to him like, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, it's just something I'm learning about real estate." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then he's like, "So anyway, I was listening to this, and this is saying this, and this went on for months." So finally, I said, "Hey man, can I give a whirl at that? I'd like to listen." It was almost like I finally took the bait. He's like, "Oh, you know," he goes, "Well, let me ask you this." He goes, "Is a house a liability or is it an asset?" I'm like, "Well, it's an asset, man, of course." And he's like, "Wrong." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Listen to the cassettes." And it was just talking about the game of Monopoly. Yes, homes are assets if they bring you income, right? Not if if you have long-term investment into them, and if you get a long-term appreciation return, sure, it's an asset. But the whole game of real estate was, four greenhouses. What is it? Four greenhouses, one red hotel, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's who the Richard Kiyosaki was, and ended up becoming massive author and teaching you about money and all this other kind of thing. So that kind of got me into that, and and I was just flipping houses in the beginning, just buying them and flipping them, and then a couple of my buddies in the music industry, and some of the business managers. I think one of my first deals was with Meatloaf, and. When you sell a $3 or $4 or $5 million house and you get that paycheck, it's like a lottery ticket, man. It's like I'd never seen money in one shot. I'm like, fuck,
Right.
I've worked my life, to get this one paycheck in the past, right? So I was like, man, I like that. So I was like, well, wait a minute, this high-end stuff. I didn't know who Meatloaf, I didn't recognize him,
Right.
It was referred to a business manager. I just wasn't even thinking, and it was this big, hefty guy, teddy bear, sweetest man in the world. He's passed away recently, but and his name was Michael Aday. So I just figured I was dealing with some guy in the record industry or whatever named Michael Aday, like an idiot. No one called him Meatloaf. He didn't look like Meatloaf.
Right.
In the
Right.
And I get through half the deal, and then he said to me, he goes, or someone came up and said Meatloaf, and I looked at him. I'm like, holy crap, it's Meatloaf. So I realized early on, and people have this thing, and with celebrities and multi-million-dollar homes. And I just had this discussion with one of my agents yesterday. One of my best agents, one of the sharpest on the team, one that has the client's best interest in place, and knows his stuff inside and out. And I've been in deals with a lot of the biggest agents in LA, and I'm here to tell you, without naming names, they don't know what the F they're doing. And they know how to look good, they know how to pull up in the car, they know how to slam and get into an argument and not put a deal together. I've been in that position where, who am I dealing with, and why is this guy such a jerk, or girl, or whatever? So I said, look, man, don't be afraid of the zeros. They're just zeros. And these guys aren't heroes. They're just people. So, it's zeros and heroes. It's nothing. It's just more money and another person that puts their pants on the same way you do in the morning.
Well, there's two things that come up for me, Jeff. One of my favorite quotes is that Jung quote: "If we don't make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate our actions and we'll call it fate."
Right.
And it's a great one. And there's also, but what I'm hearing as I'm listening to you, there is that scary jumping off point when the self that was the engineer self with the safety and all of that doesn't know what the next self is really going to be, but just knows this self isn't where I want. Like, you get a glimpse of the future. I mean, that's happened to me too, right? You kind of get a glimpse of, if I continue on this path, this is what it's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I don't want to live into that future, but I don't quite know what this other one is. I'm interested in music, so let me play and let me move to LA. But you don't know what structure that's going to take.
You don't.
What do you?
And that's the exciting part about it, And if you shift that into excitement from fear, that's where the magic is. Because look, two things are going to happen for sure. You're going to pay taxes and you're going to die. That's it, right? It's going to happen. And for some reason, we're always trying to pay as less or avoid taxes as much as possible. And we're trying to not think about or avoid death. Why is it so surprising when somebody dies? Because we all are. And you have to face that and say, this is a natural process of life. So if you're going to be here on this earth plane, whatever it is you're doing, you better go out with a big skid mark and do as much as you can and wherever your heart takes you. And don't be afraid. If you're not jumping out of a plane without a parachute every day, you're not living, right? You'll figure it out.
So here's the question though, Jeff, and I'd really be curious because it seems like you've mastered this part. There is no process or roadmap when you jump out of the plane. And there is this period of quote unquote figuring it out and this process of continual improvement in the process. So what is your how do you create structure when there is no structure? Like, where do you start? How do you think? Do you plan it? Like, give me a little, picture of how that works for you.
So I learned this and semi recently, in the last 5, 6, 7 years as I was leading a team. And there's a lot of worries that come with this. What if someone leaves? What if I don't have enough money for that month? What if? And if you're living within those what ifs, you're going to die within those what ifs, because what you think, thoughts become things. You got to choose the good ones, And if you don't, then you become those thoughts. And, being a very structured mechanical engineer, everything has to make sense. The parts need to come together. And you start playing this chess game in your head and start stacking the deck as far as pre-planning your future, And you can do that and that's fine, because you're taking educated risk. But one thing I discovered was faith, and faith in a process of knowing it's going to be okay. And I'm not trying to get all, anything about God or the universe. What you believe is what you believe. But my mom used to always say, put it to bed and let it to rest. What did she say? Let Jesus take the wheel or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I've learned to do this process, and it actually works. And that when I'm stuck and when I'm thinking about something, or when I have fear of something, or when something gives you that heaviness of like, oh, that worry, Mm-hmm. I put it on the shelf. So what I do is I just literally I put it out there and say, somebody help me figure this thing out. My brain, God, the universe, whoever it is. And you kind of put it aside and have this unwilling faith, knowing that it's going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. No one's going to die, and I'm focused on this outcome that is going to give me the best excitement for myself and help the most people. And if you listen, it comes back to you. It might come back in another form. It definitely comes back a lot of times in a different shape of what I thought it would be. Simple stuff like, which CRM should I go to for my team? You know what I mean? And I get stuck and I get obsessed with it. And I get to the point I'm like, screw it. Just put it out there. The answer will come. And have faith the decision will happen. And it usually happens like sometimes in milliseconds and sometimes, unanswered, which means move on. Stop worrying about it. So you get to the place where you don't know and you go, okay, I don't know. And my conscious brain is just trying to, I don't know if you've had this, but I've had situations where my brain will come up with a solution and then it'll come up with a reason why that solution won't work. Mm-hmm. And you get into this circular sort of obsessive thing about one little piece of what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so what I hear you saying is just sort of short circuit that by going, okay, brain, I'm going to put this somewhere else in the universe with God, faith. I'm going to leave it over here, unconscious, subconscious, and just have faith that the answer will come. Is that fair? Yes. And as crazy it sounds and as simple as it sounds, try it. I mean, it freaking works, and it's amazing. And it's giving that unshakable faith that what is going to happen is supposed to happen, right? And in between coming here and being here and leaving here, that if you don't take the risks and you stay in the rut, and you don't want to have those, and I've had this with people, and it's horrible. And with people that have passed away recently, and all those regrets on their deathbed. I wish I could have. I wish I didn't say that. I wish. My whole purpose in life is to go, if I'm ever in that position, is look back and go, frick, that was a good run. Holy crap. That was exciting. That was amazing. And, and if I don't change other people's lives in that journey, and, it's not a big ass party where, everyone benefited from whatever I was here to bring to the table, And I don't think that was a life worth living, because it just was I was just here, and I was just not making a dent, that sucks.
That does suck. So this is what I'm curious about. So how long you been in real estate, Jeff? When did you start?
2004.
Okay.
25 years. Yeah.
All right. So, and this is the interesting part for me. That was pre-Zillow. That was, there was, that was a totally different landscape in real estate.
Yeah.
And yet you still had to look at the processes, look at, hey, where am I spending time that I shouldn't be spending time? Where do I hire someone to do this? Like, you really have to parse out the high leverage activities that you can do in a day and sort of push the lower leverage ones either to somebody else or another system. Would that be accurate?
100%. And that was a learning process too, because as we get older and as we get stuck in the ways of fax machines and pagers and MLSs you had to print out, because that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was starting to come around. The internet was, MLSs and stuff were happening, but they were very archaic. But I see a lot of the agents that are good agents that are scared because they're like this, and it is, I wouldn't say it's scary, it's exciting, but this AI and where everything is going is moving so freaking fast.
Yes.
And Anna, my partner, is, she's older than me, and she's just looking at this thing going, I give up. And then they almost end up retiring and saying, I'm moving on. I'm like, Dana, this is not that crazy. You could literally watch a YouTube video, and everything I've done, I would say I faked it till I made it. The mechanical engineering stuff, I didn't know what the frick I was doing. I was just working in a I think I started in the file room, and worked my way up to mechanical engineer. Because I was hanging out with the dudes that were doing it, and and having them come to my shows at night and introducing them to girls and all this other kind of stuff. They became my buddies, and next thing you know, they were almost doing my homework for me. But I'm like, no, man, I want to learn it, And I did. So I learned it in the process and on the way. I didn't know what I was doing when I started real estate. I had no clue. I had literally no clue, and it was a little scary. I remember the first contract I did. I got stuck on the numbers when you're trying to figure out the deposit and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't like a system, figured it out for you. You had to do the math. And, I went into the bathroom with the contract because I didn't want them to have them watch me, get through it. And I was like, oh my God. And thank God it was a high-end home. They had the phones in the bathroom at the time. Remember? I got on the phone. I literally called my manager. I'm like, man, I can't remember these numbers. Holy crap. So I walk out, and they're probably going, oh my God, that guy took the contract to the bathroom. And later on, I became friends with them, and I said, I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I took it in the bathroom, and they're like, heck, I would have helped you do the math with you because you were such a cool guy. I knew you had our best interest in place, and I knew that the reason we hired you. So, and we knew if you got stuck, you'd answer the question, or you'd ask the questions. You just wouldn't throw it out there. So that's what was important to people. You don't have to have, even for newer agents too. The older agents are scared in their boots about technology and how fast it's going. Watch YouTube video. It's pretty fun and it's easy.
Well, here's the thing that's curious to me, Jeff. Like, the business models, from when we were kids, a guy owned a hardware store. The business model didn't change his entire lifetime, right? You open the door, you clean the shop, you order the stuff. The pace at which things are changing now is at light speed, right?
Light speed, I agree.
And it is like drinking out of a fire hose. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts on AI, and when you realize, like, the Demis Hassabases and the Sam Altmans, even they don't know where the hell it's going or how fast it's changing.
They really don't.
They have no idea. So this is what I'm curious. And so this is where I've been recently. Like, you were at Compass, then you moved, started Frontgate, and then you came back. One of the things I'm curious about is how, in working in that big ecosystem with all of those tools, with all of the tools that they're providing, because Compass is always at the forefront of the top 1% of tech. How do you work your way through, hey, here's the tools that they have, but this is what I want to do in my process? Like, do you sit down every 3 months? Is it a weekly thing? Like, how are you sort of gathering all of this information and making it usable for yourself?
That's a good question. I don't use any one. I use bits and pieces of stuff, and I Frankenstein it together to make it work, right? So if you're getting into sending out newsletters, there's really cool things out there like Ghost or Emma, versus just doing the standard Constant Contact or MailChimp. And I have a team, so we create monthly newsletters that have to relate to everybody's clients, and then learning on how to using AI to customize that email for each agent. They all work different areas. They all work different price points. And I just didn't want to put out a boilerplate, email just talking about, big topics. I wanted it to kind of lean into their area, into the things that they want to talk about or a local business they wanted to support. So with AI, I was able to figure that out. And I had to ask AI, what does this? I have a big team. And it told me and it figured it out. With the Compass stuff, it's great. I use private exclusives. They have some amazing tools, but I have to learn what tools that we need on our team that's going to accelerate the agent and how it works in our ecosystem. But keeping it to the equivalency of a coloring book versus an encyclopedia, because agents are moving fast. They don't want to. They don't have time, So I have to make everything on the user interfaces or the process as simple as a coloring book. And I'm not.
Listen, changes. There's enough change already. So this is what I'm curious, because I talk to a lot of small agencies, right? 50 agents or less. And I do a deep research report once a month on what are the top 1% of brokers doing that the others aren't. Mm-hmm. So I just want to throw out to me, what are when did this happen? So speed to lead. Mm. A lot of these smaller brokerages, a call comes in on a Saturday night, it goes into a voicemail, the Sunday receptionist shows up. Now she's calling an agent who's at an open house. He doesn't really respond until Monday, but now the client's at work and has talked to 9 different people. How important is that speed to lead? And when did you start to master that with AI?
I still don't have, I'll be honest, I still don't have it mastered because there's a lot of weird things. When you go into automation, things happen so fast. And if you don't have that right messaging to that person for that exact thing that they asked about, and they get a AI robot that is answering them wrong, their brain is tuned into it now. People are starting to adapt and learn, oh, that person wrote that in AI, I can tell, right? Mm-hmm. And they could start seeing the stuff on Instagram and Facebook. Oh, that's fake. It's AI, right? So it was exciting at first, but people are smart and they get tuned into it. And I think it's an insult to people if they get the wrong messaging, and it's like you're not important if that messaging comes across. So if you don't set up your AI messaging to fake it out, don't ever use AI and fake it out to pretend you're a person and start talking to it, because you'll lose people. Because I, do unto others. If I get a call and it's an AI call and I could tell every one of them that it is, or an email, I don't respond to it. It's just not. I'm not important. It gives you the message you're not important. So when you do have that speed to lead or that response, it's okay to say, "Hey, I'm Jeff's AI assistant. Jeff would like to talk to you."
100%
on the team. So people are getting smart with it. So and AI is incredible, but I don't like being hoodwinked. I don't like to get bait and switched with, oh, that wasn't even a person, because then I lost my trust for that person.
Well, and this is what's interesting about it, right, Jeff? Because what I hear you saying, and this is where AI is interesting, if you break down the actual tasks that it can do, what I hear you saying is, yeah, okay, if that response comes in, it's important that they're acknowledged right away, but acknowledged like, hey, Jeff is showing a house right now. Here's a link to a Zoom, or here's a time that he can call you back, or what's a good time for him to call you back. But it is important to have that not get lost in the voicemail, not answered for a day, because that also makes the person feel like they're not important. So it's finding that sweet spot of what can AI do to get you in front of someone, but not lose them to the system because it's not set up to handle incoming. Would that be fair?
100%, especially if it's top of funnel leads. And what cracks me up about the market right now is everybody's like, if you go on from Sierra to Wailopa, all these, pay-per-click stuff, it's people are fighting so hard to meet strangers, to earn their trust. And that takes time. It takes an investment of time, because at the end of the day, real estate's a contact sport, or we wouldn't have a job. And the importance of meeting somebody face to face and important to earn that trust. If you don't set up your systems to get a face to face or to give them content of what they asked for in the first place, because let's face it, it's people are surfing around and they're like, hey, here's a property. Ooh, sign into my website. Give me your email so I can track you down, trace you. It's like open houses. And I go into open houses all the time out of the area, like kind of incognito, just to see what happens and best experiences. And I hate more than anything when people come up and they lie to your face and say, oh, you need to register your name because my owner wants to know everybody's at home. Bullshit. Yeah, the owner's going to go home and go, let's see, Sam Smith at 123, at gmail.com was looking at my house. Just be honest. Just like when you take a name, you have to trade something for that. Hey, I have some off-market properties if you're looking in the area. You have to have something of value to trade for them to contact you. Otherwise, they're going to put a fake name most of the time or a fake phone number because they don't want you to chase them down. So when you do open houses, don't lie. It's the same thing as AI, right? Owner wants name.
Absolutely. And Jeff, I remember my first managing broker said to me, because I was stressed out over some deal I was trying to do. He said, hey, Gus, you know what the problem is? You want the deal more than your client.
Exactly.
He goes, they have to want the house more than you want to close the deal because the energy that's coming across is totally about you. And
Right.
So what I hear you saying, but this is what's interesting, Jeff. Once that relationship is established, now let's go to the next piece. You talked about the newsletters that are relevant to the specific person that's receiving it. And that absolutely AI can help with. The other thing is the predictive analytics, kind of identifying before they know who may be moving in the next 12 months. So talk a little bit about that and how that structure is set up within your organization.
Well, I think only person that knows when someone's actually is moving is that person and fate, because you don't know. And in the old days, we sent out enough postcards to kill Amazon for us, for God's sake. I mean, we're sending out 350, 400,000 postcards, and that was the shotgun approach. And it did work. It did. The consistency of it going out. We were sending out sometimes 2 a month, to big areas. And, after a while, it is a branding mechanism. And, but unless you have a shit ton of money, like, Nike or a massive budget, and you can wait 6 to 8 months or a year to build that brand, I'm not saying it won't work. It will work because you will be top of mind after a while. But what I wanted to do, and I use this company called Celebrity Agent, which is incredible because I was spending so much money on postcards and it was just waiting and there was no ROI. I didn't know, the only time I knew is if I went to a listing appointment and they, for whatever God-forsaken reason, kept all the postcards that they got over the past year to pick someone.
Right.
And if they're collecting postcards, what they're collecting postcards for is what? They're basically saying, ooh, this person takes pretty pictures and they're successful and consistent. So with predictive analytics, it does help because what they'll do is say, well, this person's been in this house for over 12, 15 years. Their mortgage is coming up. It looks like a downsizer. Depending on the company and depending on that content, some of it's a lot better than others. So these guys nailed it pretty good. So what they do is with predictive analytics is that if someone's moving in a neighborhood, they'll send a handwritten postcard, but it's done with a real pen, but done by robot, but it'll dress, and it looks pretty good. It's not like, because I hate those too, by the way, like those are insincere to me, but it'll address it and say, hey, Jeff, just want to let you know a neighbor sold down the street for a record price. Since you live, on the same street or in that neighborhood, you have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. I'd love to give you a market update if you're thinking about it. And what that will do, depending if you're farming an area, which will, any listing that happens in the area, it will do that. Or if you have a listing yourself, you're sending out, maybe 100 or 200 to the people that are most likely to move. Why I know it works is because they just put like a phone number on there, a QR code, and 1 or 2 deals in our neck of the woods with spending the money that you would instead of, let's say it's $1.50 a piece, whatever it is, to have a handwritten, customized note addressed to that person for someone most likely to move. I get the inquiries, and it's paid for itself tenfold. with sending out the postcards that way, and then it brings it into our database, right? After it comes in the database, then it's like, hey, here's your report. I can do a much more custom report if you want me to come by and blah, 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 and sets up the appointment. And that worked. And now I have a tangible ROI where I spend money, I see the return. I'm not.
And AI though is the one that gives you that information, so let me back it up a second. Let's go from 2 years ago. What processes in the last 2 years has artificial intelligence taken off your plate and given you a significant ROI while not losing your voice and your authenticity?
For me, in building a team, which you can break this down to if you're an individual agent, I almost lost the company in that time frame. Because what happened was this market shift, and regardless of the interest rates, in our neck of the woods, if you guys are watching the news, we had 2 fires that were we were evacuated from this house I'm sitting in now. We were evacuated, and it's kind of a scary thing when you have ashes falling on your car when you're trying to figure out what's the most important thing to take and getting out of Dodge as fast as you can. That's pretty eye-opening, and you're like, holy crap, this is real. So what happened with us, with being in Southern California, there's a whole, pretty much you feel like Pee Wee Herman getting into the ring with Mike Tyson. And it's just like, dude, stay down. You're just going to get hurt, And it was like a David and Goliath kind of a thing, because I'm like, no, man, I'm going to stay in here and I'm going to figure out how to stay. So my overhead went from, the income to the overhead ratio went down 60%. And it was very significant. I had to figure out ways to find a lot of money on a monthly basis to stay alive. And it was depleting me. I was selling assets. I'm like, what am I doing here? So with the combination of using AI and virtual assistants, because the lovely state of California is also not a friendly place to have employees, because, it's kind of like landlord tenants out here. The state thinks that you should be taking care of tenants if you're a landlord. For some reason, anything happens. We've seen people stay in houses for well over a year and a half, if they have a good attorney and they decide to plop and not pay you rent. And there's nothing you can do. And I've seen that completely wipe out clients. So you have to work around stuff. So with using AI, with simplifying processes and using virtual assistants, I was able to lower the overhead at least to a break even while we kind of licked our wounds, and now we're getting back into profit. So if technology
and what were the specific first tasks that you were able to sort of offload to AI and the VAs?
So, well, first of all, it was just getting a VA and then having the struggle of that doesn't work. I hired a person. Look, nobody magically is going to get into what you do and do it better than you, especially for the economics of it. For the equivalent of paying someone $80,000 a year here to paying someone $20,000 a year. You have to take the time and invest into, okay, how do I set up this structure? And I used AI to set up the SOPs so I could explain how to do something, so I would do it once and then I would create an SOP. It would put it into, AI would basically create that job and do it very efficiently. And then, keep doing it better and making it more efficient. So if that virtual assistant moved on, or if I got bigger and now I have 3 doing the same thing as we have 60 agents and growing, I was able to create that job position with a really good SOP that was constantly evolving, that before would have been so time consuming, and it came up with stuff that I didn't even think about. Hey, if I did this, what could I do it better? For instance, trying to figure out how do I customize for 60 agents a monthly newsletter, what's out there in the universe? Someone's got to have something. So doing that research, it discovered, and then it says, well, give me the top 5 and break it down to the top 2 competitors. And then I would take a meeting with them and then discovered a really cool process on how to do it. And then it became the SOP. So that saved, what would take 2 or 3 people to do without using AI or doing it by hand, by setting up automations and everything. It took one person, literally took one person a half hour versus...
To create all of those newsletters for all of those different people. Now, did you build like a chat GPT in there, or was it a deep research, or, you know what I mean? Like, how did you train it, or was there an outside program that like enabled you to do that?
So the other thing I discovered, and you've probably gone down this rabbit hole, is that all of a sudden I discovered that I was trying to come up with a SaaS product or come up with a solution
Right.
myself. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not selling a CRM here. you
Right.
know? So,
Right. You do go down that rabbit hole.
but then I just, it's like, what the frick? And so I would find people that are doing it better than me that already found a solution to integrate
Right.
into my systems and then help them,
Exactly.
use AI. So I learned that early on. It's like, Jeff, don't invent anything. You don't need to be the architect for this. You need to, basically be the ringleader on how to put all this stuff together and then make sure it doesn't break,
So I love that. So the process was, hey, I want to customize these newsletters because I hate a generic, hey, here's how you make gingerbread at Christmas. Like nobody cares.
Yeah.
So how am I going to create value for the client and create value for my agent so that my agent looks like they really know what the hell they're talking about, because they do. But how do I do that in a way where the agent isn't going every Sunday, ugh, I should really work on this newsletter, but I know I'm not gonna. Now I feel guilty. Now I'm even more stressed because there's something I should be doing that I'm not. Oh, and I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And all of a sudden life is not fun.
Oh, it's horrible. And then you're putting out garbage that no one's going to read anyway. And I use the
Exactly.
example of like, we're not looking for a house right now, right? But let's say my wife's in the database because I sold her a house and pretend she's a client, and she could give a flying shit about if someone sold a house in the neighborhood or what's going on
Right.
with the real estate economy. That's done. We're locked in. So I'm like, well, how, if I'm working the sphere of influence in past clients, how do I deliver what's important to them and what would be interesting, or semi-interesting? It was like, So again, you can use AI for this, and you can set up a prompt, and it's very simple to do. You can go into yours right now, into your ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever you use, and say, hey, I live at 91302 in Calabasas. And in this area, I want to find out what's going on, what's important, what's this stuff to do if you have kids, what's happening with, recently with the fires, they started dumping all the debris from the Palisades into a landfill that we have in Calabasas, and we're like, whoa, you can't do that. Now you're bringing all that toxins here. Why don't you bring it out in the middle of the frickin' desert where no one lives? So we come up with topics that are important to people that live in an area, right? And you segment those people. If you have active buyers or sellers, you're treating them much differently than a sphere of influence person, right? So I would train AI to say, hey, every morning or every week or whatever time, give me a summary of what's happening and give me content on it, write a blog about it, and give me social media post content and deliver that to my mailbox every morning. So stuff would come in, I'm like, well, that's boring. But some stuff would come in that was great. I send it over to my marketing people, and I'm like, here's the topics I want you to talk about this month. And it was done. It was done. Where before, so I have morning prompts that just give me exactly what I need, and it's a quick approval process. That's cool. I don't like this. I don't like that. And that was pretty amazing.
And then you had the predictive analytics. Now that's a system within the Compass database, or was that a third party, or how did that kind of come about?
Third party, it was Celebrity Agent, because they write, so I set it and forget it. I basically just say, okay, boom, every time I have a listing just listed, send the postcards to the people that are probably going to be moving, and send one for just listed and just sold. Or if I'm focusing on a neighborhood, tell them what's going on, and if they want to know market evaluation, because at least you're being the town crier of real estate, saying, hey man, I'm paying attention, and I become the local expert that way.
Got it. What other processes has AI sort of taken off your plate? But here's the other important thing, Jeff. Don't you think it's also important to look at what it's feeding you and make sure it's in your tone, or go, you know what, this is bullshit. I don't want to include this in here, or this is too political. Like, I think there still is that process of not automating the output. It can give me the, 90% of it, but how important is it for you to kind of go in and say, I don't want to include this, or I want to word this a little bit differently?
Well, if you set up an AI, and it's very simple to do. It's actually way more simple than I thought. And I was like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, that is incredible. So I set it up in my voice. It learns what I want after a while,
Yes.
right? Because I
Yeah.
will go back to it and I'm training it. And you got to think about
Mm-hmm.
this way. You're training someone saying, hey, I like this, but you sound like a schmuck and you sound like a robot. Sound like
Right.
me. You know,
Right.
be charismatic, talk like Tony Stark, whatever the heck you want. It will
Right.
start. It will learn in your voice. So when I deliver that to my team, it's like, oh, it sounds like Jeff, because I
Right.
trained the AI to come back to me and say, don't send this, I like this, and I'll respond to that AI instead of getting it, and I will prompt it to basically say, hey, learn to talk like me, and it learns,
Got it.
and so yeah.
Anything else that just jumps to the top of your mind about cool stuff that you've been able to sort of outsource to AI? And then the second part of the question is moving forward. Where do you think it's kind of going from here? 6 months. Let's go 6 months because a year we can't even talk about. But what else are
I
you
wish, I
automated?
wish I knew what would I wish I knew what was going on for next month. That's how fast it's moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it literally is going. So trying to predict that is like I might as well just be a fortune teller, But
Mm-hmm.
what I can work with is what comes in now and work with that. But also consciously knowing this is going to evolve and this is going to change, and not to be very agile and to be open to shifting gears and improving. And that's what my team loves about they know I'm at the forefront of what's going on, and they love the fact that they feel like they're 2 3 years ahead, or at least 2 or 3 months nowadays, ahead of
Right.
the curve of what's available. Three things I can give you that I think is going to turn the knob on, and what worked for us, using a company like House Whisper that you can integrate into your CRM. It will look at every person in your database, look at all the summaries, and it'll tell you, hey, you've been trying to get a hold of this person, they're ignoring it, maybe you should put it on a nurture program. Or this person's looking at this property, maybe it's time to give them a call. So it'll give me the suggestions and will also tell me on what to say, especially if I'm a newer agent. That's the problem. You don't know what to say,
Mm-hmm.
So with the using House Whisper that integrates into your systems, it does that for you. And it's an incredible tool because it just integrates in, and it just looks at what's going on with that client, how many times you tried to respond, and what you should say based on that. Hey, you're ignoring me, but saying it in a cool way, and you can train it to talk like that. So that's one thing that's been incredible. The other one is to be found on ChatGPT and ALO and getting found, like just like with SEO or getting found on Google. I'm working with a company right now that if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can help you out. What it'll do is you'll say, hey, I'm Jeff Biebuyck and I work in Calabasas. Who's my competition? Right? And then you start asking it questions like a customer would. Who's the top one real estate agent? Who has the most experience? Who should I talk to? Who has the best testimonials? Well, that's how people are searching nowadays, right? So what we do is we go in and we do a test, and I'll sit down with you and say, well, here's where people are finding you, here's where people are not finding you, and here's where how to get to be that number one in that search prompt, because the prompts are all different. So first thing we'll do is go in and say, okay, first of all, there's no consistency. You're outdated. We were talking about this earlier. You're like, how many sales have you done in a lifetime? And it was 2 billion. And I'm like, well, shit, I think it's over 5 billion now, but it was
Mm-hmm.
my fault because I didn't update the data. And it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was confusing the AI and the search things. So it's consistency on, having the same, bios and having the correct phone numbers and information. That's huge. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
lift. That doesn't just, you got to go in there and figure that part out.
Mm-hmm.
So we figure that part out, get the foundation set up. Then we'll start, doing articles, and then we'll start doing some, blog content to, and backlinks and all that important stuff to make sure that that's in there. So there's a lot of tricks to doing that, and that's not easy to do, or it's not something that if you don't know how to do it, it's difficult. So we came up with a service we'll do a test and see what that looks like, and then we'll put it on a program. And it takes a while. It takes 3 to 6 months to get all the engines and geared up in place, but we'll move you up into that position exactly where you need to be to get found. And that's the new frontier, right?
Well, and Jeff, then the next frontier about that, which nobody has figured out yet, is what happens when these AI agents are actually really functional. and I can just say to my AI agent, who knows what I like, that I like to play pickleball, that I want the kitchen to face east, and knows all of that stuff about me, and say, okay, go out and find 8 properties for me and schedule viewings on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And when that AI agent now, when your website, when your information is now no longer interacting with a person, and then you have an AI agent on your side, and now you have these two agents talking to each other, sort of vetting it before I even get in the car to go anywhere. That's a whole other frontier.
Yeah, that one's going to be fun when and that is happening actually now, and everyone's trying to figure that part out too as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
The other part is don't forget who you are. Look, at the end of the day, with the 800-pound gorillas of Zillow and everybody else getting at the top of the search engines and trying to get that meeting stranger thing, right? Who's looking for a house right now? Get their IP address, and they're getting hammered. It's kind of like an expired listing. Expired listings at one point was kind of cool, but man, if we have a listing that expires or withdraws, I have to tell my clients, I go, you're going to get hammered by 50, 60, 80, hundreds of people magically calling you up that have a buyer that or how they're going to sell your house if we didn't sell it for whatever reason. You're going to just get hammered, with, that data. Your sphere of influence is so important because if you really look at your business, it's going to be 75, 80% of it. So, focusing on the relationships that people already that know, love, and trust you and delivering them content, not like as a current buyer or seller, but delivering them content of stuff that they want to see. So like getting back to with my wife, it's like, she's vegan and I'll say, hey, there's probably a lot of vegan people or vegetarian people in Calabasas. What are the top 10 restaurants, interviewing local businesses, making local business owners, partners with you, putting them on a directory. So we have a thing called localmayor.com. It's not released yet. We're doing beta versions of it. But what it does is it'll go out and scrub all the local businesses, not the mom and pops. And this thing will literally, you can build your directory saying, I want to get a service directory that I could send to my clients when they move into the area, that here's all the top vetted, companies that don't have Better Business Bureau ratings and then have 4.5-star testimonials, basically. So it'll gather all that information and we'll set up an appointment with that local business owner saying, hey, I don't have a dog walker. I'd love to put you in my directory and introduce you to my clients. You got 10 minutes. My calendar fills up with local businesses on every Tuesday and Thursday between 2 and 4. And I'm meeting all these cool people that once I put them in the system, it'll automate blogs and social media content to promote them to my database. Then I use those businesses as content, Everybody needs a dog walker. Everyone needs a window washer. And then I make a relationship with those local businesses. And they become my clients, and they are the local influencers of just like social media does. So if you get it down to a micro market, create content to serve your existing clients, but meet new clients by helping them out, introducing them to your people in your database, that's a home run. You want to change your business overnight? Do that. Because you'll turn around and those referrals, you're going to have a 50, 60, 70% closing ratio versus some stranger danger that came in that wanted to look at a picture of a house, right? It's a longer term game, but if you nail that and work on that consistently in the next year, you're going to triple, quadruple your business. And that's something that Zillow or anybody else could not take away from you, any competitor.
Well, and what I'm hearing when you say that, Jeff, is you can't do that if you're sitting around spending 15 hours trying to write a newsletter that no one's going to read. So, I mean, this is the perfect example for me of AI taking, I always say it turns what you love and turns it into a superpower, takes what you hate off your plate. The more I can get off my plate that's energy draining, that's not productive, the more time there is to use these kind of creative tactics to go out and talk to local business owners.
Right.
So I love that. Here's my question for you. Let me paint the picture for you. Some real estate broker, he's got 15 or 16 agents in Detroit or Cleveland or, upstate New York. Has heard about AI, but is kind of scared of it. Feels like, it's too much on my plate. What are the three top processes that they would need to automate like immediately to not be out of business in 2 or 3 years?
So are you talking about like a smaller boutique brokerage or a
Yeah,
broker?
you got a local agent who's, just sitting there. He's got a little shop on Main Street. Maybe he's been in business for 15 or 18 years. He's got 12 agents, 15 agents working for him. Half of them are kind of semi-retired. Maybe he's got 3 people that are working really hard. He's feeling frustrated, can't really do any agent recruitment because he doesn't have any processes in place. Maybe he's got an outdated CRM that's kind of sitting there that he's not really marketing to, doesn't really have any process in place for when people call up, how to get them in the CRM, how to follow up with them. So what would you say is sort of the most important action that broker could take in the next 6 months to at least get caught up to where the market is right now and what would be expected?
I think it's just consistency of staying top of mind because it's so noisy out there. Out here, it's like every 7 households, someone has a real estate license, for God's sake.
Right.
And with all the flippity floppity shows and the $1 million listing, there's a lot of people
Right.
getting into our business right now that have the complete wrong concept of what this is. This is hard. We earn our money. I had a client recently that his daughter was buying a house and they just went, what was the process? Well, they went on Zillow, they met a stranger, they ended up hating real estate agents because, people were just chasing them if they pushed a button. And once we got under the contract and they saw what we do of, hey, there's an HOA there if you want to do an ADU, a guest house, and there's regulations if you want Airbnb something, all that kind of stuff. By the time we got done and we're just closing this deal, she was so mind blown of what we had to do to get that deal put together, that from all the nuances, from negotiating a request for repairs and all that kind of stuff, that they had no clue. They saw that value proposition of what we do if you do it right and if you work for your client, and they saw the work. So they were looking at the commissions in the beginning going, holy crap, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But once they saw what we did, they were so happy to pay it because we guided them into that, into that system. But getting back to your question about, where do I start? Especially if you have a team, get into a CRM. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's, Follow Up Boss to Lofty to Sierra Interactive, just get it into a place and don't make it a graveyard of names of places of that. Just because you accumulate a bunch of names and send out a monthly newsletter that 50% of them are not going to look at is not going to change your world. It's not. So, but what you do have to do is create consistency with staying in front of them. Yes, do a monthly newsletter, but also you should be calling those people quarterly, not say, hey, let's just meet for coffee so I can extrapolate, someone out of your brain, basically out of your brain. But if you provide content that they like, right, and blogs, and they see that, and we've seen our newsletters get up to almost 60% now because we're putting out content that they care about. So if you focus on what's important to a client, and you can just say, hey, listen, what are the 3 most important things that a buyer wants? What are the 3 most important things a seller wants? What are the 3 most important things that would be to someone in my database that I had sold a house for in the past? It will tell you what to do, and it'll give you the content to serve to those people. And then with that, you just put that consistency into your CRM to give to your agents so that they could stay top of mind. So when they think of real estate, it's like, if I say Coke or Pepsi, which one are you going to pick? And
Coke.
if you're root beer or whatever the heck,
Right.
you're down that list, your odds, unless you get up into that mindset, that top of mind mindset with consistency of content that they care about, not, who the Dodgers are playing in their schedule this year.
Right.
That really moves the needle.
So what I hear you saying, Jeff, is first, the CRM is first because you got to actually have a database of who you're going to talk to. Then you really want to segment that out. Okay, I got a database. There's 80 agents in there because they're in my email, right? So I'm not going to be quote unquote marketing to them in the same way. It's really being able to personalize and identify what does that person on the other end of this relationship want or need from me at this point. What value could I give them? And with your thing with the local businesses, now you're not only providing value for that person who needs a dog walker, you're providing value for the person who walks the dog. And all of that, once it's set up, and you work on it can be automated with artificial intelligence. And that's never, listen, the thing that's shocking about it, me, Jeff, I've been playing around with Gemini recently, right? I started asking it because it's connected to everything in my Google Workspace, every email, everything I've ever said about Jeff, and now being able to load the transcripts of every call automatically into it, the context that I have on each person. I can literally go there in the morning and say, okay, what did Jeff and I talk about? What's his deal? And it will give me the context for where we were at in the relationship, what's interesting to you. It'll tell me, hey, Gus, ask these questions because you're all into the spiritual stuff. So ask him about this, that, and the other thing. And it allows me to have a connection with Jeff where if I don't utilize that, I'm kind of looking at my CRM going, is there a note in there? What did I say I was supposed to say to him? And it just allows these kinds of conversations to be more organic because this is what I love to do. I mean, is that an accurate description of what AI can do?
Well, yeah, and it's funny, Gus, because we talked, was it like last week or whatever?
Yeah.
We were discussing and we were talking about Gemini, and that got me into some pretty deep thinking about it. So since we spoke last time, I was like, holy shit, Gemini rocks, man. It is, because we're in that same workspace, Google Workspace.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I could do this. I connected Asana, which is like, a project thing for my team. I connected Gemini to the emails, to the workspaces, all this other kind of stuff. And then I just started asking it and I was like, holy crap. So I want to set up, like I have a project, let's say something I'm building for the team. It picked up all that data and I said, well, now put it in Asana, and it did. And then it assigned the people and then I'm like, holy crap. So now I'm talking to Gemini that now is connected to Asana and it's like doing the work for me. So thank you for that, because I really was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I started implementing stuff. So I stuff we learn from each other every day, It's
unbelievable. It's funny. And the way it really, we always have these aha moments, right? Like I remember my aha moment with AI. I had something was going on with my son. Some shit was going on and I didn't quite know how to answer it. And I said, let's ask ChatGPT. And it came back with the most emotionally, spiritually advanced answer where I literally went, right. I literally went, I wish I could communicate like that. It said what I wished I kind of knew in here, but I couldn't figure out how to articulate it. And I was on, LinkedIn, and someone said, hey, let's touch base January 13th. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't really know how to connect my LinkedIn. So I just went to Gemini and said, Gemini, how do I do this? And it took her name, it took her link, it created a task for January 13th. It gave me the context for what the conversation would be, what I had said. And, one of the things, even I built a gem where when I'm on LinkedIn, I can put the LinkedIn profile in there and it'll give me a green, yellow, red light. It'll either say, yeah, this person, definitely talk to them. The yellow light is, ask these couple of questions. Red light is, no. Look, I did a little deep research on them, and this is where they're at. They're not a match for what you're doing. And my God, I mean, it takes 8 seconds for it to do that for me, craft the response, remind me what to do. And by the
way, we wouldn't be talking right now if you didn't do that in the first place to meet me. And I'm like, wow, here's this guy, Gus. He seems like a really cool guy. We have a lot in common. And he already gave me some really cool gems, no pun intended, and with Gemini. And whatever you did in your messaging or whatever, because I get a lot of them, I have a ton of people reaching out, but, you broke through that. You broke through it. So whatever you're doing, it's working. And if you could do the same with your clients and break through with your voicing and your messaging, and if it speaks to someone, then go find your tribe. You know what I mean? Your tribe will come to you if you put the messaging out there and they relate to it. And I do that with recruiting. Recruiting is the easiest thing in the world, because I'll go interview one of my agents that are extremely happy on the team and interview them and say, how did you triple your business? It wasn't all me, it was you, you just by us meeting, we got you through some self-limiting beliefs. We got some prompters out of the way that was kind of like squashing your business and limiting. I had an agent said, that did really well. He's making 6 figures. He goes, I just can't get over 100,000. He did 350 or something crazy this year. And, why? and what was it that did that? Because it wasn't just something you plugged in with us and, unicorn
Right.
fairy dust blew out, It was because of the mindset, and it was because of working together and some tools that he used that got him over that hump. And that was
Absolutely.
really super cool. And so the messaging we put out to recruit is stuff we're talking about right now. I'll take clips and say, hey, someone that jives with this, that relates to it, that wants to get better at AI and has a team that can help you get there, and putting it in a coloring book version so you don't have to figure it out, so you can focus on sales and focus on meeting clients. Let us do the heavy lifting. If this is something of value that I can deliver to you, they're so excited to talk to me. I'm not sitting there talking about splits and this and the
Right.
typical stuff. They're like, hey, I want in. I heard what you said. And putting that content out there to attract becomes this inbound marketing platform versus an outbound. So
100.
it,
Well,
it, it
here's
it really helps.
let's get mystical for a minute, Jeff, okay? Because this year one of my commitments was last year, but moving into this, I only want to talk to people and work with people that I like. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean that in an energetic way. Like, either you click with someone, you dig them, they dig you. You know what I mean? You're having these kinds of conversations. Do you think, because I send out a lot of stuff, and the people I end up talking to generally are really cool people that I really genuinely like, right? Like, I'm like, hey, Jeff, if I'm out in LA, man, let's grab a cup of coffee. I'll take you to the city spa. We'll have Ivan whack us around with the Venix in the hot. So, but do you think there is that element that as you put more of your sort of energy out there of service, that you do attract a different type of person into your world?
Oh my God, yes. And the worst people in real estate is to force yourself to work with an asshole. And because
Right.
they're going to refer you to other assholes, and you're just
Right.
working with a bunch of assholes. So if you put out something, I mean, coming from the music industry, and in understanding vibrations and frequencies and all that kind of stuff out there, the frequency that you put out there will attract other frequency, right? It's just like your mindset. If you wake up in the morning scared to death, not, worried about how you're going to pay your bills, worried about this, the sky's going to fall. The sky's going to fall because that's where you focused your energy and your frequency. However, and I'm not talking about just making some vision board and just, everything will happen good for me because I will it to. Well, that's great. But the universe also reacts on belief. How much do you believe that? And if you believe it, you're going to take action. And that action is what's going to move that into place. Just because you want something is great. I want a lot of stuff, but is there something that I want? It's not that I want, I need it, I have to have it, right? And then I also push it out there and say, well, if I have to have it, then how do I push this out there to attract like for like? So by putting content out there that people can relate to, and putting it in your voice, right? Just be you. If you're going to put out content, oh my God, I just get so frustrated when I see, if I'm at one of my listings and it's a broker's open, and I see somebody walking around dressed to the nines that don't even say hello, and they're showing the house like it's theirs, that they're bumping into walls because they're just, staring into their camera. Hey guys, I'm at this da-da-da-da property and blah, blah, blah. First of all, boring. No one gives a shit. Nobody
Right.
sits there, oh, let me, unless they like, high-end homes, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do that. But if you put something out there that is wholeheartedly you, that talks about, local content, local businesses, things that relate to people, that same kind of people will get attracted. And that's how we built our team. The people that come on our team want what we offer, and which
Right.
is, culture and a better way to get there, and just cool people to work with. So we get 50 applications, minimum a month, and we have to go through all those. I end up only hiring 3 or 4. That's a process. So I had to set up a whole process of how do I screen through these people? Are you hungry, humble, and smart, and are you cool? I could teach you the rest of this stuff. It's no big
Right.
deal. If you have to put food on the table, I'll help you put food on the table. But you got to put the work in. And then if I'll know in the first 30 days if that person's broken and what they're avoiding. Sometimes they don't know what to say to people, or they're not confident. Well, if we can help you what to say and build your confidence and not be afraid of the zeros, you would not believe the metamorphosis of some agents that I've seen come in that are outselling agents that have been doing this for 10 years. I've had brand new agents in the first year starting out right, outselling, some of the senior people, on the team that need to tap into that.
Love it, Jeff, man. I feel like I could talk to you all day. This has been, this is good stuff. You listen, usually the podcast is a half an hour, but I said usually, yeah, right. No. But I love talking to you because I love people who are using it, but also recognize like there's a bunch of shit I don't know, but this is where it's going. And sort of, I don't want to say being in the mess is the wrong word, but being in the messiness of, hey, I've created this structure up to this point, but the structure in front of me isn't structured yet. It's creating it on the fly and having the faith to do that. And you just embody that. So I so appreciate the time you took. I will be following up, Jeff, because I have a bunch of questions in the email, but I just wanted to ask you, is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't, or anything else that you want to tell our listeners or viewers?
I think we covered everything, and it was so exciting to talk to you because you definitely, out of a lot of people I talk to, and I talk to a lot, like frequencies align. I'm like, this is a cool cat. I can learn a lot from him. He could learn probably a lot from me. And then we have this place that maybe we could help other people out and get them to the finish line. Because at the end of the day, I don't look at competition anymore. I look at myself as competition, and I look at, your trophy is your bank account, and making sure that you did that with integrity and, not, doing the right thing by your client. But, I guess the thing is don't be afraid. A lot of agents are like, God, this is moving so fast and it's scary and holy crap. Take it one piece at a time. You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. You can only build a house brick by brick at the end of the day. So take what's the most important to you, get rid of all the other distractions, stop looking at what other people are doing, and hone in on the one thing you want to do and do it well. And ask AI, how can I do this better, right? And then master that and move on to the next. And don't overwhelm yourself with this, because as you know, this can be extremely overwhelming, and it's overload. So much stuff comes in. You're like, oh my God, now I got to switch this around. So, I've had to learn how to master one thing and move on to the next, and find out what was the most important thing to tackle first. So just do that, and then move on to the rest, and, ignore the noise, and, focus on, what's most important first to you.
Well, let me ask you this, Jeff. So you have that engineering mindset, but let's say there's someone who is having a challenge with that. Do you think it would make sense for them to go out and find a mentor, find a consultant, find somebody that they identify with and say, hey, I need some help with this. Like, come in and, give me a lay of the land here. What are my systems? What could I be doing better? Do you think that would make sense?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm also one of the same people that you just spoke about, because I don't know, maybe I did mechanical engineering. This is like putting mechanical parts together. It has nothing to do with computers or anything like that.
Right.
It was just more of just figuring out what I wanted, knowing that there's intelligence out there that could tell me how to do it, and there's other people that have already done it that I can learn from.
Exactly.
And tapping into that. That's
Absolutely
what you should focus on.
All right, Jeff, man, I appreciate this, and it was fun exchanging the kids' musical careers. I liked, that was
together too. That'll be fun. That's like,
listen, these kids, they don't respond to any text, so I don't know if you have the same thing. I feel like they're on the phone all the time, but I text my kids, I don't hear back from them for a week. Yeah. So I did try to connect the two of them. We'll see what happens with that.
We will, for sure.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for watching Real Estate Rewired with Gus Waite, AI with a Heart. Please hit subscribe. If you're interested in being on the show, reach out to me. And Jeff, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
You could just Google Frontgate Real Estate, and you'll find everything. And if anybody wants any of the tips or tricks, or even just getting part of localmayor.com, or getting found on ChatGPT, I can help you with that, and I'd be more than willing to get you steered in the right direction.
If you've got value from today's episode, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you're ready to turn what you love into your superpower and take what you hate off your plate, schedule your free AI discovery call. The link is in the description and pinned comment. I'm Gus Waite. Until next time.